Hello, everyone. This is County Historian Larry Tippin. We have been in a series of what we call tiny towns and vanished villages of Putnam County. Today, I want to talk about Belle Union and the related Bobtown. I had a screenshot of an earlier presentation just to show you that if you want, you can pause if we're looking at a newspaper article and you want to read it, or if I've already read it and gone to the next slide, but you're not done, you can grab this little dot and pull it back. They go backwards on this slide. Belle Union, Bobtown. Grinner Bob Mechanic, not to be confused with his younger cousin Muley, Bob Mechanic, owned considerable land south of what is now Belle Union and had a store next to his home. You see that 1879 Atlas, Putnam County. We see the current Belle Union, and then what we now kind of call Bobtown, or Bob's Corner, a mile south of Belle Union. Mechanic was appointed postmaster of Belle Union in 1870, and as was the custom, ran the post office out of his store. You see the newspaper article from the Indianapolis News, June 3rd of that year. Saying new post office called Belle Union has been established in Jefferson Township, Putnam County. But then Milton Scott was appointed postmaster in 1874, 4 years later, and he had a store in what we now consider Belle Union, a mile north of Mechanics. So he moved the post office to his store, located in the recently platted Belle Union, a mile north of Mechanics. So then we had a North Belle Union and a South Belle Union. South Belle Union, again, sometimes referred to as Bob's Corner or Bobstown, after Bob Mechanic. Some have suggested then, to keep it straight, they should be called Dogwaller and Hogwaller. Not sure which is supposed to be which. But very, very interesting photo of Bob Mechanic's home, 1 mile south of Belle Union. You see Mechanic, then his family. One of the interesting things about this home is it actually is 2 separate log cabins under one roof, separated by what's called a dog's run, which is basically an empty space about 4 feet, 6 feet wide, where you store your firewood or your potatoes or something. So that way you have 2 generations, 2 separate families living under the same roof. It's a very interesting configuration, a very cool photo. In the 1887 history, Putnam County, which is one of the lesser known histories, there's an interesting summary of Bob Mechanic, saying he opened his store, his farm, section 13, where the first office was held. I assume the first post office. Subsequently moved to present site, where his store is also removed. He's formerly a member of the Masons, so he's a 33rd degree Mason, which is very significant. Then in May of 1860, a cyclone swept through his farm, destroying the building's fences, and he was carried about 75 yards and injured quite seriously. The residence has been burned twice without any insurance. And here's an article in Green Council Heard 1912, where it's specifically saying Bobtown. So if you go to the Hoosier Chronicles and you type in Bobtown, you get a few articles of this, which was Bob's Corner, Bobtown, 1 mile south of the current Belle Union, which was seen of quite a fistic encounter, they say, where a man and wife from Greencastle had been deep into the sauce, had an argument. The woman, who's a prize fighter, succeeded in getting in some blows before the bystanders interfered, separated the two. There's another interesting story in the Banner graphic in the Greencastle Banner, 1873, where it says a site for a new town has been surveyed 1 mile north of Belle Union in Jefferson Township, recognizing then that the first one at Bob's Corner, if you will, was the Belle Union, and we have a new town survey 1 mile north of that. And then at that new location, it's said to have 1 store and a blacksmith shop but they expect to soon need more. So it started to be called apparently Needmore. There's already a Needmore in Brown County. So when the post office moved from South Belle Union to Needmore, the Belle Union name went with it. 1874. The North Belle Union, platted by Andrew Hill, also called it Belle Union, recorded in Plat Book 3 on June 6, 1873, 8 a.m. Andrew Hill was first married to McCamey's younger sister, Melissa, who died in 1852. And then in 1874, Milton Scott, George McInich, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, platted an addition to Belle Union, which was still referred to by many at that time being North Belle Union. So here's those plats. Very interesting. This was what we call North Belle Union, or what we commonly call now Belle Union. This original plat on the north side of the road. I'll highlight this part, which shows that it was recorded March 6, 1873 at 8 a.m. A new town was also platted by Robert and his wife, Delilah McCamick, on that same day at 2 p.m., also called Belle Union. The plat book identified it as 1 mile south of Belle Union. There's bits and pieces of that. I'll highlight this here on the next slide. But this, which is the second page, which says it was recorded on that day at 2 p.m. And then said to be 1 mile south of Belle Union, but also platted out and called Belle Union. So with two Belle Unions a mile apart were recorded the same day, 6 hours apart. And then Ronald Baker, in his book From Needmore to Prosperity, suggests that the Belle Union name came from the Union Valley Church, which was organized 1868 at the Hill School, and a family named Bell had attended that church. Now, I did a lot of research, and I did find a few bells in that area at that time, but not very many. The 1864 atlas, or 1864 map, courtesy of the Library of Congress, where you see what we now, I guess, call the Mill Creek Cemetery. It's at a Baptist church, and with the Union Valley Church, and then a mile south of that, McCamick and Hill. 1873, the town of Belle Union, laid out by A.J. Hill, consists of dry goods store, drug and grocery store, saddle and harness, blacksmith shop, 10 or 12 houses, said to be current under construction at that time. So this is the original town of Belle Union, with the post office, the Hills Addition, blacksmith shop, and a sawmill, then Scott McInich Addition, and then schoolhouse. Like to read the interesting articles. You learn a lot about a community. Go to Hoosier State Chronicles, and here's one from 1880. It's called Jefferson Township and Mill Creek Township. It said Richard Scott teaching school, Belle Union, so forth and so on. Said a man walked into Belle Union with a basket of eggs on his head. People looked and pointed as if he was a circus. Again, you can pause at any time if you want to read some of these. This is interesting. In 1880, they're a sad one, I should say, not interesting. That when Edward Fisher's wife, standing on a chair, arranged things in a manner, her clothing caught fire. She ran into the yard, crying for help. Mr. Fisher hurried to her side. Right time, she was rolling on the ground with her clothing burned off. Her body and limbs had burned to a crisp. She was unconscious until the next day when she died. Very sad. And then that very same day, a 3-year-old daughter of James McCamick was severely burned when she fell against a red-hot stove. Fortunately, she's expected to be okay. Also, 1880, Hiram Cox, constable of Mill Creek Township, said to have arrested the only sober man in Belle Union the other day on the charge of being drunk. Justice Hurst was so inebriated that he could not act as an official, and after appointing J.L. McCamick, I think that's James, to perform his duty, he was carried to bed. McCamick dismissed the case and said to have any authority, he would have fined both Hurst and Cox. Afterward, Hurst pled guilty to the charge, being drunk for Justice McIntosh. Tried to plead his honor to secrecy, but he would have none of it, and probably fined Hurst $5 plus costs. Said Cox was so drunk that his prisoner had to lead him to the justice office. The map, current map, the Animal Highway map of Belle Union, and then nothing here of what we call South Belle Union. And I hope you've enjoyed some of the early history of Belle Union. You can read a lot more articles in Hoosier Chronicle and so forth. Come back, we'll have another town to talk about.